Welcome back to the SEO Weekly, where queries are weird, advice is controversial, and everything depends. My name is Garrett Sussman of iPullrank, and holy moly, we're at the end of 2021. It's been 4 months of the SEO Weekly, 16 episodes, and I have had so much fun. So much has happened in the world of SEO. I mean, you just think about Google alone, between Core Web Vitals obsessions and page experience updates and product review updates and mobile first indexing coming, not coming, maybe it's coming. It's been a roller coaster. Algorithm updates where like Danny Sullivan actually gives us a heads up, and it's still fluctuating here as we roll into the end of it. I've had so much fun. I hope you have had too. Who knows what 2022 has to bring, but you know what? We're gonna do it. We did it. 2022 SEO predictions. Everyone's been coming out with them. We did as well. Most people hate them. I find them fun. But we decided to do something a little bit different this year. What I did is I reached out to a bunch of people, and you know what? Instead of, because these prediction lists, these 2022 SEO prediction lists are boring as hell, I asked people, I said, you know what? What's your boring 2022 SEO prediction? What's the most boring thing, like voice search is going to be the big thing, or make video content. Okay, well, that's not besides the point. But I also asked folks, what is the most ridiculous, out of the box, awesome, exciting, random idea that you have for SEO predictions? So I got a bunch of great responses. I wanted to share them all with you for our very last SEO Weekly of 2021. One thing that you'll notice from these predictions is people took some of it seriously. Some folks, were more clever and snarky. Some people were just flat out ridiculous. Everybody sent in both a boring and a ridiculous example of their predictions. All in all, this is just fun. It's smart, it's fun, it's enjoyable. I love our industry. Let's check it out. So when it comes to boring predictions, it ran the gamut, but there were some kind of general predictions. So for instance, Ola King said, Google will continue to focus more on helping searchers find answers to their queries and less on helping websites get traffic to their sites. Christine Schoschinger said, the best SEO is still old, boring SEO. The core ranking factors such as well-written content, strong link profiles, and proper technical SEO are still the core ranking factors, and if you do those well, your site will do well. No tricks needed. And Begum Kaya of The Grade Company said, 2022 will be the year of voice search. She said it, just like every year has been for the last 3 years. Maybe one year it'll come true. And she also said there will be approximately 30 big hashtag SEO Twitter melodramas. There always are. This last month has been a little intense when it comes to Twitter melodrama. You look at past episodes to see what I'm talking about. And then also KEIRA Davidson said, Google will roll out several new algorithms throughout the year, and there will be winners and losers from this. It's pretty general, pretty boring. I agree with all of them. Content's important. Content matters when it comes down to it. And content, that's not going to change when it comes to SEO. Good content matters. In fact, a lot of folks had predictions specifically about content. CAMILLE TROXEL said, quality content will matter. On point, Camille. TAMARA SYKES said, continue to write naturally and don't keyword stuff. After all, that's what Google and humans value. And Sarah HARRADINE said, write, create, and structure your website for humans. We've all been doing it for years, but still panic when Google brings out a change. Worry about keyword density, or even whether it matters if keywords are in camel case or new for 2021 in bold type. Yeah, just write well, right for people. It makes sense. And then finally, REBEKAH says, add content everywhere, no matter how unnecessary it is. If you have a blog featuring recipes, for example, be sure to give your entire life history before the recipe. Now, okay, that's a boring SEO prediction, REBEKAH, but I picked up a little bit of snark there for anyone who's ever looked up a recipe. You will typically see the life story of the food blogger and everything that happened to make that specific recipe possible. When it comes to social and SEO, Rejoice OJIAKU believes that social media SEO will be a bigger thing, especially when brands start repurposing website content into social media posts. Now that's really interesting. I mean, we're all about repurposing content. I think there's a ton of value in that. Rejoice, you might be onto something. That's boring. Links. Good old links. Well, NATALIE ARNEY says links, internal and external, will continue to be relevant. She also had the John Mueller idea for her ridiculous one, as you can see up there, but there's a little more John Mueller to come. Now, NATALIE MOTT said, links are still going to be important for your website's authority, no matter how people may spin recent comments from Google on this. In order to rank well for competitive search terms, you're going to need some links. Meanwhile, SVETLANA STANKOVIC said EAT, which I'm actually surprised there weren't more EAT predictions. It is so critical these days, but she said there will be many more user-centric Google algorithm updates and improvements, things like EAT, product reviews, local search improvements, core web vitals will continue growing in importance. The way how content is perceived will go way above keyword rankings into a topical ranking or answer to question ranking. Google will develop new ways to interpret content, but also new ways to measure overall functionality and user satisfaction. EAT will grow even bigger. SVETLANA covered a range of different topics when it comes to almost like MOM and EAT and topical significance and clustering. Really cool stuff. And I think even though it's her boring SEO prediction, I think it's fascinating, right? Isn't that interesting? And I think she's on point. She did mention local. And speaking of local, well, there are a lot of local ideas when it comes to SEO. And I always have place for local SEO in my heart. A good friend Amanda Jordan said, Google will continue to focus on GBP, Google Business Profiles, not Google My Business, and local SERPs. Can't disagree with Amanda. She's right. They just renamed it. Of course they're gonna continue to work on that. Jessica Girardi believes that local is going to explode. We're already seeing a significant investment in the way that map packs look and work, and with people exiting their homes for the first time in 2 years and the supply chain the way it is, people are going to want to shop brick and mortar more. I agree. I mean, yes, we're having Omicron right now, but, you know, in 2022, people are going to leave their homes. Actually, speaking of which, Crystal Tang says, as the pandemic and ongoing lockdowns move farther from temporary and closer to the new normal, I believe we'll continue to see consumers driving the need for digitization or partial digitization of services they used to complete in person. Seamless, speedy, and attractive online experiences will continue to be impactful for SEO. I tied this to local because hopefully the local mom and pops will be able to board that bandwagon and digitize their services at a local level. And then Crystal AUDAIN said, I hope I got it right, Crystal, I apologize, but really cool, her prediction around local is that local SEO and AI will be the golden couple of 2022. AI is getting more sophisticated and local SEO is getting more refined. We had an interesting, boring prediction about website migrations from Catherine Ong. Catherine said, I think for my clients who are migrating web platforms that mapping and correctly executing 301 redirects will really move the needle on how much traffic they can maintain during the transition. Oh man, website migrations are such a headache for SEOs. It's so important that you get it right, Catherine. I'm with you. It's important. Gotta get those redirections right. Gotta get them right. What would any SEO prediction content be without someone making the claim about voice search? Well, thank you, PRAVEEN SHARMA. You came through. He said 2022 is the year of voice search. There you go. Boom. Done. done. So, oh, did I mention John Mueller? Yeah, his name might have gotten mentioned once or twice, but from a boring SEO prediction, Nadia MOJAHED said, Google's John Mueller speaks to the SEO community. I'm with you, Nadia. I do think that in 2022, John Mueller will speak to the SEO community. However, switching tracks onto the most ridiculous, out-of-the-box, amazing SEO predictions. On the other side of the coin, we had a lot of those, and let's start out with some more John Mueller. In fact, Jen PENALUNA she believes John Mueller will use a cow emoji in his Twitter name. Cow emoji. Okay, there you go, John. You've been prompted. Is it so ridiculous? I don't know. Meanwhile, Luke Davis chimes in and he thinks that John Mueller will finally pass the Turing test. Luke, are you implying that John Mueller is domo arigato, Mr. Roboto? Artificial intelligence is all the rage. I don't know. Meanwhile, Tasha Antwi, all about social. Really interesting thoughts about social. She believes social media becoming the most important digital touchpoint for consumers. As social media enhance their platforms for shopping and video, they are also enhancing their search features and capabilities, meaning that we as SEOs should be ensuring we understand the various nuances of how people search on social media, understanding their search intent and optimizing for it. This will be a major means of driving traffic to the website rather than traditional search engines. And you know what? Tasha's absolutely right. I think frequently in SEO, we only talk about Google. I know I do it way too often, but like you have Amazon, which is a search engine. You have social media, YouTube as search engines, Twitter, Facebook. They all function as search engines. So if you're doing SEO, it's absolutely valuable to think about social in that context. Good on you, Tasha. I'm with you. Okay, we're going into the out-of-the-box AI, SEO, and content. And we've got Alessia Korobka, and she says Google will be able to identify unskillful AI-generated content and will not index that. Interesting. Lots of affiliates will run crying about why their awesome content is not indexed and the website's rankings are tanking. Not so new though. Alessia's calling affiliates using scalable AI content, naturally language generated under the bus. Ooh, that's rough. I don't know. Could it happen? Can Google, can robots recognize robots? Like Mirror, speaking of Turing test, or, Frankenstein's monster? That's a literary reference. Meanwhile, Shubhangi Gore says, with the rise of AI and machine learning algorithm updates, SEOs will have to shift to intent first strategies. They will have to be robust enough to cope with changes and the increasing content demand. They should have an AI strategy in place and work on adopting advanced content strategies like topic clusters, pillar content, which would include FAQs, internal links to better satisfy user needs, refurbishing the old content, optimizing for featured snippets, zero-click searches. While a lot of this is actually, typical recommendations, almost boring SEO predictions when it comes to content, I love the idea of the AI first content strategy. That feels very unique to me. I'm down. Meanwhile, AZEEM Ahmad says the future is optimizing for, I love it. Ahmad, you crack me up, dude. EC SERPs, aka electric car SERPs. Nobody will have time to search on desktop, mobile, or tablet. Everyone will be driving electric cars in 2022, and in-car displays are getting bigger. Target people where they're searching right inside of their Tesla or any other electric car. You have the power, AZEEM. Speaking of like out there random channels, Abby Reamer thinks the rapid rise of augmented reality search. Google's doing some cool stuff. Did you put this cool link about like arvr.google.com/AR? Check it out. I love augmented reality. It's gonna be interesting to see if that ever takes. I guess it kind of depends on Google Glasses or something like that, right? You ever watch Black Mirror? Meanwhile, Rachel Stiers predicts voice search will finally take over as the main form of search, like everyone's been predicting it would be for the past 5 years. As I said before to PRAVEEN, and I'll say it again, what would a SEO predictions piece of content, video, post be without a reference to voice search? Sarcastically or seriously, I honestly can't tell. Meanwhile, when it comes to the SEO industry, SEO Joe blogs, Joe, she believes that there will be no cap on SEO budget, leading to lots of SEO jobs where they get paid well, they will never be criticized, and they will even be employed before the company websites have been built. I sense some snark in the sense that obviously there are many companies that do not budget for SEO or take that into consideration these days. Joe is recklessly optimistic that that is going to be the case in 2022. Fearless predictions, I love it. Meanwhile, Women in Tech, KRISTAL Ortiz says, I'm hopeful that with the Women in Tech SEO efforts by Rija Buwali, we will have a record year of women growing in the SEO industry. KRISTAL, I hope so. If you can see from these predictions, there are a lot of women who are just crushing it, who know what the heck they're talking about in our industry. We need to continue to make them more visible. Women are crushing it in SEO. Meanwhile, there's some interesting Google upgrade predictions coming up. For instance, Darwin believes that Google will finally give us the real search volume data superimposed on Google Trends graphs and of course all accessible via an API. I mean, I know this is in jest by Darwin, because how cool would it be to actually know search volume? Right now we all depend on it based on like Google Keyword Planner, which is like a kind of sketchy source. You know, Darwin's like, yeah, sure, we'll make search volume available. Never in a million years will Google do that. But I'm with you, buddy. I think it would be awesome if they did. I think it would be very helpful for our strategies. Meanwhile, Roxana Stingu believes that Google will continue to increase the distance between the viewport and the first organic in SERPs, and then remove pagination on desktop and replace it with continuous scrolling, because we would realize that all #1 ranks are actually starting on page 2 otherwise. Roxana's right on that whole ranking thing. We all get sucked into ranking. It's really all about value, and the truth is, as more snippets appear, as more ads appear, the value of ranking, you know, on page 1 is like, is it really page 1? Roxana's like, no, infinite scrolling on desktop, we're never gonna know. I mean, it's gonna be pixels. It'll be all about pixels. Lydia Infante says, Google is going to take on another vertical in the SERPs. My wild guess is that it will aggregate financial products next, and a cute little module allowing consumers to compare directly on search results. I'm with Lydia on this. I think that there are gonna be more verticals. You remember when Google was doing that all with like the hospitality, and we're getting all of these travel and hotel, like specific sorts of like rich snippets, and got some different ones with like e-commerce and the automobile industry. Well, we could see that. We could see that continue on. I hope you're right. That would be interesting. Meanwhile, Alice Roussel believes that Google Sheets Excel demonstrate its ability to automate tasks and run complex analysis without needing coding skills. I could see that happening. I could see they continue to develop Google Sheets in a way that makes it easier to run really complex tasks without needing to know a ton of statistics or a ton of coding. That would be nice. Come on, Google Sheets. Throw us a bone here. Meanwhile, Mufado Sadbriwala says Google will launch its own e-commerce platform to compete with Amazon. Search Console will have the option to add annotations. Now, when it comes to his Amazon fighter prediction, they're kind of doing that, right? Like, is it that outside the box? Now, will it be something that's completely independent of Google? I don't know. That sounds a little more ridiculous to me, but the idea of them, like, Google continuing to build a Amazon competitor, absolutely. Absolutely. Meanwhile, OLIVIA-MAE Fong says, okay, I love how she starts this. Okay, hear me out. Google is going to rename and rebrand one of their bread and butter tools, Search Console perhaps, to something absolutely different a la Metaverse and Facebook. It will be a distraction from a core update that is released around the same time. OLIVIA-MAE is conspiracy theorizing that Google is going to misdirect us, gaslight us, and confuse the heck out of us all at the same time. Maybe that's what they were doing with Google business profiles from Google My Business. It could happen. We could see another complete misdirection. Why not? Meanwhile, Miriam Jessier, Miriam cracks me up. She reached out and she's like, is this too much? Is this too much, this prediction? I don't think so. She believes that an EU or US lawsuit against Google will bring about an update that will affect us all. I don't think it's gonna happen. More likely EU than US, if I'm being honest, but that's the wrench in the gears that's gonna throw us all for a loop and really change the game. Until then, I mean, boring 2022 SEO predictions, right? All status quo. But speaking of these cliches, one of my all-time favorite had to make an appearance in terms of, is it even a ridiculous prediction? But Gabriela Sanino says, SEO is dead. 2022, we can finally lay SEO to rest. SEO is dead. And then, one of my favorites, Claire Carlisle, brings it all home with, and I'm not taking this personally, Claire, I'm not taking it personally, but she predicts that SEO prediction pieces actually die in 2022. Well, I can tell you with 100% certainty, Claire, they have not died in 2021. It's been a pleasure kind of making this content for y'all. I really love our industry. If you enjoyed these, obviously everyone did both a boring and a ridiculous one. There is a full post that's including all of these great ideas and ridiculous ideas and hilarious ideas on iPullrank. Check it out in the description. We will be back in 2022. And I hope you come with us. I've had so much fun. My name is Garrett Sussman. I work with iPullrank. If you enjoy this, if you want to be updated, if you want to just support us, then subscribe to the SEO Weekly and our YouTube channel. Like and share and comment. I'd love to hear what your predictions are, both boring and ridiculous. And if I don't talk to you in the next week and a half, I hope you have a great rest of your holidays, and let's bring it back strong in 2022. Let's continue to make the world a better place. Remember, be kind, support your neighbor. You don't know what anyone else is going through. Thank you for joining me on the ride. I'm signing off.